Hello, today I want to go ahead and go over part two and the final part of my review of Becoming by Michelle Obama. My name is Dr. Nika Thrower. I am a professor as well as a higher education advocate and the author of the book entitled The Art of Dominating the Winner's Circle for the College-Minded Student. So a while ago, a few weeks ago, I went ahead and decided that I would get into audibles. Just a really quick story. I'm really a person who likes to read books, touch books, get really intimate with books. So my friend a few years ago, my friend Mara, I knew she was really into audibles and I really didn't understand. But within recent times, I decided to explore audibles for myself. And those who may not know what audibles are just books that you can listen to at will in your phone. So you would download the book, purchase the book, download the book, and you would just listen to it at your leisure. You can go through the chapters, you can rewind it by 30 seconds or more or forward it, but it's a book that you basically listen to. So like I said, Becoming was my first audible that I have ever listened to. So what I wanted to do, hey Nicole, I'm up so early and I see you are too. So what I wanted to do, thank you for joining me. So what I wanted to do was go ahead and go over part two of what I learned in Michelle Obama's book, Becoming, and just give you some information, give you some nuggets rather about what I learned, just a few. And then I want to give you some nuggets that I learned about Barack, as well as the nuggets that I learned about them as a couple by reading this book. So the first thing I wanted to mention through my second part of reading Becoming was that I believe when Michelle Obama was almost 30 years old, but not quite 30, her father died at the age of 55. And before he died, he had long-standing complications when it came to his health. So Michelle Obama decided to go to Ivy League institutions to obtain her education, and then she came back home and she practiced law. She had a very high-paying job that she enjoyed those perks of being able to buy a brand new car, pay her student loans, blah, blah, blah. But it was her dad's death as well as her friend Susan's death that happened for her to decide, you know what, this is not everything. Let me go ahead and follow my passion. Also, she mentioned the job that she had brought her great stress, fatigue, and basically made her unhappy. So she went ahead and explored other opportunities, which I talked about that in part one of my book review, where she met Valerie, which at the end of the day, Valerie collaborated with Barack Obama, and she went on to do great things for Barack as the president. So she went ahead and followed her passion. So that's my nugget number one, that she followed her passion. A lot of times things happen in our life, either good or bad, that kind of redirect us to go into a different direction. So it was those two deaths that transpired in her life for her to ditch the high-paying job and to go ahead and follow her passion, which at the end of the day was in the federal government, or in the local government, to where she worked at City Hall. The next thing I wanted to mention, within the book, it talks about her journey as far as Barack going ahead and putting his name in for the presidency, and how she was on the trail along with her husband, and different times not necessarily being with her husband and going along the trail. And it talked about election night, how she felt, and those feelings when he was elected. So I was definitely able to get some of that information right there and just kind of relive it with them from a different perspective. So that was quite exciting for me. What I did like is the fact that when she got into the White House and she was getting used to her life, it was very interesting to learn, not really surprised, that Barack had a full detail of folks with him at all times, to include paramedics paramedics personnel, to where if anything ever happened, down to blood being carried wherever he went just in case something happened. I thought that was quite interesting. But going back to her time in the White House, I like the fact that she tried to make sure that her two daughters had a normal life, as normal as possible. By them being part of this legacy building period, you can imagine that they also had security detail with them as well. But I like the fact that Michelle tried to make sure they were, normal kids, able to grow up normally. She mentioned how she built relationships with some of the parents that were friends of the girls, and at certain points she would try to slip in and see different events without being noticed as Michelle Obama. The next thing I really like, going back to her passion, like I mentioned, her passion to where she decided to ditch the high-paying job and to go into local government and to delve into the community. She did the same thing when she was in the White House. What she did was she followed her passion as far as eating and moving and exercising. So she built the initiative Let's Move, which really highlight the fact that kids need to move more. Also, My Plate. And My Plate is, when we're talking about My Plate, that is, it's in relation to serving sizes. When we're talking about nutrition, about like how much carbs you should have on your plate, how much vegetables, how much fruit, and that sort of thing right there, down to the fact. Okay, sorry about that. So she built her passion around things that she was passionate about, which was physical activity, which I'll get more to that in a second, as well as the Let's Move initiative. And when I'm talking about My Plate, that actually even went into the school systems. So she has had a bearing, and she was able to build a legacy as far as school-aged children eating healthier in the school. The last passion that she did pursue when she was in the White House as First Lady was attention to military personnel dependence. So when I say dependence of military personnel, you have the military personnel. So when I'm talking about the military, I'm talking about the Navy, Air Force, Army, and the Coast Guard. I think I'm forgetting one. Air Force. Okay. So the dependents are the family members, the spouses, the wives or the husbands, as well as the children. And a lot of times when we're talking about dependents, military personnel go from place to place. When they have families, the families are uprooted and they go from place to place too. She had a passion for when families were uprooted and they went to another place to live with their military spouses, that they had better opportunities to secure a job. Better opportunities to secure a job. Also, she was passionate about military personnel having more spotlight or more attention on mental health issues, mental health illnesses. So those are the few things that really resonated with me when it comes to the second part of Becoming. As bonuses, what it really resonated with me when it came to Barack, I like the fact that the book talked about in the evenings how, as a family, they sat and they ate. And at the end of eating, they would go their different ways, but in the hallway or in a designated area, her staff would leave a binder of things that she needed to review for the next day, for her to review that night. And then Barack Obama's staff would leave a rather hefty binder for him to review for the next day's business issues, world events, and that sort of thing right there. And I like the fact that she brought out that one of his requests were that he had received personal letters from people. I don't recall exactly how many letters the White House received every day from just regular folks, and he required that 10 letters be provided to him every evening for him to read, and he would actually correspond with those folks. As a bonus, also when it comes to both of them together, I like the fact that she was really transparent, talking about within their marriage in the beginning years, she talked about them having issues. If you were to read the book, you would see that they are quite different. And she talks about how they went and they got therapy or couples counseling, and how she developed some of her own habits. She talked about how she was a very big advocate of physical activity. So before he became famous, and he was doing things within the government system, and he would be off to work, you know, traveling here and there, whatever the case is, she made it a point to make sure she exercised at different points during the week. So what that meant was, even though she had her own household, her mom would actually come to her house very early in the morning, watch the girls while she exercised, and I believe she got back home about 6:30, 6:45 in the morning. So I like the fact that that was something that not only she instilled within herself as a young adult, potentially as a child as well, but she was able to take that passion and go ahead and take that to the White House, and that involved, or that translated into Let's Move and the My Plate initiative. So those are my nuggets for part 2 of Becoming by Michelle Obama. I'd like to give a special shout out to my very dear friend Mar for getting me into the Audibles, because I really did enjoy that book. I believe when it comes to Becoming, that book was either 24 or 28 chapters. I think it was a total of 17 hours. And like I said, when you're talking about listening to an Audible, it doesn't have to be in one chunk. It can be in a small segment. So it took me a little longer than I anticipated to listen to the book, but it's definitely worth reading. The book that I'm listening to now, and I think that book is about 7 or 8 hours, is The Power of Habit, Why We Do What We do in life and business. And a couple things I think I want to talk about and come on and bring out is some concepts called the habit loop and chunking. And I think those would definitely be something that as college-minded students we can use in our everyday life. Hopefully you were able to gain some good information. It doesn't all have to be applicable to you, but at least 1 or 2 points as you go about your day as college-minded students. Once again, my name is Dr. Anika Thrower. I am an advocate of higher education, as well as the author of the book entitled The Art of Dominating the Winner's Circle for the College-Minded Student. Until next time, I want you, and I didn't forget about you, to stay college-minded.